Very good afternoon to all. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Okay. So how was your mid-semester paper?
Fine, sir.
Fine in which sense? 43 number.
Nice, sir.
Now fine, now nice, huh? How many of you just copy paste the answer from someone else? Now there is a no one is raise your hand. Because in most of the question I am getting the similar answer. None of the students are doing the anything new. That's why I'm surprising. So I think today we discuss the solution of your mid-semester exam. Hope all of you are getting the screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in a first objective, the question is the force between the two charges is 240 Newton and the distance between the two charges double. Then what is the force will be? So in this case, if you see the generalized equation of the Coulomb's law, F is equal to Q1 Q2 divided by 4 pi epsilon 0 R square. So somehow you should know the relation between the force as well as the distance. So you can consider the force is directly inversely proportional to the 1 upon R square. So already the force is given. So you can take the whenever the force is double. So you have to consider 2 raised to 2 because it is a distance is double. So it's a 4. So 240 divided by 4. So it's approximately 60 Newton. So I think most of you are selected this answer 60 Newton. It's a right answer. In a second question, you have to express the point in a two different coordinate system. One is the circular cylinder and second is the spherical coordinate system. I think most of you are also doing this same thing. You have to use the generalized equation of the circular cylinder as well as the spherical coordinate system and you have to solve it. So this is the generalized equation where the x, y, and z is already given to you, and somehow you have to find out the rho, phi, as well as the z. So you have to just find out the rho is equal to under x square plus y square, phi is equal to tan inverse y by x, and for z equal to z. So I think most of you also completed this part. And similar, it may be asked in a spherical, then you have to find out the answer in terms of the spherical coordinate system, where remember, do not confuse with this one. Most of the book, they are following the radius in terms of the circular cylinder, it's a rho. Radius in a circular cylinder, it's a rho, and the radius in a spherical coordinate system is the r. So spherical coordinate system is the function of r, theta, and phi, and the circular cylinder, which is the function of the rho, phi, and z. Okay, if you are doing the reverse thing, then it's also maybe wrong. So using this generalized equation, you can also find out the r, theta, and phi, where tan inverse under root of x square plus y square divided by the z, and the rho divided by phi is equal to tan inverse y by x, which is also similar for the circular cylinder. So I think these are the two different equation of the how we can find out the point in terms of the circular cylinder. So I think most of you also completed this part. Example 2. In example 4, there is some kind of a vector is given to you, and you have to find out the diversion and some curl and some mixing of the diversion and curl. So I think those who are already completed, okay, you should know the generalized equation of the diversion, gradient, and curl. Then and then you can solve it for the either it may be a Cartesian coordinate system, either it may be a circular cylinder, or either it may be a spherical coordinate system. So whenever you have a in terms of the vector form, like already the vector is given to you, then you can also find out the answer based on this one. In a next question, what is the Stokes theorem used for the following operations? So if you see the divergence theorem and the Stokes theorem, which is indicate for the Stokes theorem, it's an operation in terms of the curl, where the del operator, which is multiply with some vector but in a curl form. So answer is the curl is the right thing. For the Gauss law can be used to compute which of the following? Gauss law can be useful to find out the radius at which the equal charge distribution nearest to the whatever the point you are selected. So for that we are assuming there is a current carrying conductor or current charge which consists of in some particular location. So we have to find out the boundary at which the charge is the uniformly distributed. So that's why you can apply the Gauss law. So for Gaussian surface related to Gauss law, and for the Ampere circuit law you can find out the Ampere's law. Now in a question 6, most of you are done the mistake over here. Transform the vector to in a different coordinate system, which is the cylindrical coordinate system. Now can anybody tell me whatever the vector is given to you, can I consider as a vector or it is a scalar? Whatever the d is given to, it's a vector or it is a scalar? How we can identify it? Hello? How can I identify the given vector d? It's a scalar or vector component? You can see over here, a of phi is given to you. A of phi is nothing but a unit vector. So this vector consists of only single components in a direction of the y. The components in a x direction, the components in a z direction, it is a 0. But only the components in a x direction is given to you. So whenever you deal with a vector, you always remember use the matrix form. Use the matrix form for the conversion in terms of the vector. So if you see the matrix form, then you can easily identify it. Getting the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, this one. See, you are putting the value of ax, ay, and az. By default, ax is 0, ay is x plus z, and az is also 0 because the components in a x and components in a z direction is 0. So only you have to worry about this one because we are interested to find out the conversion from Cartesian to the circular. Now you just multiply it, but whenever you multiply it, you can see you are getting the values is x plus z into sine phi, and the second value a phi is equal to cos phi x plus z. Okay. For the first a row is equal to what you are getting.
Ax cos phi, ay sin phi.
Okay, first a row is equal to sine phi into x plus z. For a phi is equal to cos phi x plus z. Clear? But just see the value of a row. If it is the a row, all the components should be in a row phi and z. All the components should be in a row phi z. If it is the row phi z, why there is a value of x is present? Okay, most of you are completed this part. Up to this you are using the matrix, it's right. You multiply it x plus z into the sine phi, it's also right. But see the value x plus z. X is basically what? X is the Cartesian coordinate system, and they are asking to convert in a circular cylinder. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to put the value of x is equal to rho cos phi. Instead of the x plus z sine phi, what you have to put? You have to put the x is equal to rho cos phi. Clear? Now if you see, if I put the rho cos phi plus z into the sine phi, you can see the each and every values, it is now in a form of the rho phi and z, not a single components in a x, y and z. Yeah, so I think most of you are also mistake over here. You are just multiply the matrix, but you are not putting the value of x, maybe it is n y. Okay, so this is the first mistake over here. Second mistake is they are just express the vector. Suppose the same question if maybe asked, evaluate the vector at a some point, everything is similar, like you have to convert this vector from Cartesian to the circular cylinder, but you have to evaluate at a some particular point. Whenever there is a term is the evaluation, you have to find out the value of rho phi z, and whatever the point is given to you, according to the point you have to find out rho phi z, and according to this different multiplication you have to put the value of rho phi z over here, and you have to simplify it. Well, this is called the evaluation and this is called the expression. Okay, so in mid semester they ask about the express, how you can express the vector in a circular cylinder. Same case if it is a spherical coordinate system, you have to use this matrix. This 2 matrix is sufficient. So if I multiply it, you have to find out the value in terms of the spherical coordinate system. Okay, multiplication is not a simple the answer of your question. You have to solve it, or you have to identify the value at a some particular point. Another question is magnetic vector potential. It's a vector. So in this case, whose curl is equal to the magnitude. So magnetic vector potential. So for that you can consider the del cross A is equal to B. We are identify the magnetic vector potential in terms of the B using the Maxwell's 4 equations. So I think fourth one is the right answer. Next question is you have to state the Maxwell's equation in an integral form as well as the differentiation form. I think most of you are done in this part, but some of the students I'll just mention only the equation. Equation is not a sufficient. You have to justify it why it is something like this. You have to mention it if it is the Ampere circuit law, like some of you are mentioning the last equation and you are mentioning the Ampere circuit law, but you describe it what is exactly the Ampere circuit law. Similar for the Maxwell's first equation, del dot D is equal to rho V. So to mention it, the diversion of any vector field must be equal to volume charge density. Then and then you are getting the full marks. Only the state, only just mention the equation, it's not a sufficient answer for the 8. In a ninth question, derive the equation of the electric field intensity due to infinite uniform seed chart distribution. I think out of the 52 students, none of the students are getting the full marks for this question. So many times I was telling you, whenever they're asking about the electric field intensity for the seed charge, you have a two option. Either you can use the Gauss law, either you can use the electric field intensity using the Coulomb's law. We are find out the generalized equation of the E, and we are find out the electric field intensity for the uniform seed charge. I'm just sharing the screen, just wait. Hope all of you are getting the screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. See, whenever in an exam, it may be asked, find out the electric field intensity for the any charge configuration like a line, point charge, surface charge, and the volume. Okay. If it is not a clearly mention it, which method you have to follow, then you can use any one of them. But if they are asking you to find out the electric field intensity using the Gauss law, then you have to derive from the using the Gauss law. Okay. In this case, the right answer is this one. You have to draw this figure, find out the vector, find out the surface, which is nothing but a symmetrical in nature, which is located in a xy plane, and this xy plane have a surface charge density is rho s, which is the coulomb per meter square. And we are selected one point which is the perpendicular to the surface, which have a height is 0, 0 h. Okay, so you can see this equation dE is equal to dq 4 pi epsilon 0 r square. This equation is coming from where? This is basically Coulomb's law. We divide the force in terms of the charges, then you are getting the electric field intensity for the point charge, and you are modify this equation for the surface charge by just replacing the location of the surface and which we are trying to find out the electric field intensity. Okay. So you can see over here, this is the first surface and this is the second surface, where both the surfaces are symmetrical, but the point at which we are trying to find out the E, which is the perpendicular nature. So that's why we are considering this is the height. So if I joining these two points, one is the surface location at which the surface is located, and the second point is the P, which is nothing but a height is 0, 0 h. So this distance will be considered as a radius r. So somehow, sorry, not a radius, it's a distance vector. Somehow you have to find out the vector r by using this equations, or by using these two points 0, 0 h, and these have a 0, 0 rho. So why it is minus? Because whenever you are selected this point P at a center part, you are going inside to the rows. That's why minus rho a rho plus h az. So if I know the r, if I know the mode of r, I can easily put this value in this equation and you have to just simplify it. So this is exactly the right answer for the electric field intensity for the seed charge. Okay. But what exactly you are doing? You are choosing the electric field intensity for the Gauss law. I just also setting the same screen, just wait. It is there. So most of you are doing this one, but for that you should know what is the D. You should know what is the D over A. D is the electric flux density. Okay. If you are following this one, you have to justify the Gaussian. So why we are selected this equation psi is equal to closed loop integral of the D dot ds. Yeah. This is basically what? This is the Gauss law. You can see over here. This is the Gauss law. Psi is a electrical flux which is similar to the number of the charges enclosed by this particular surface. So you are following this mathematical equations. Okay. So in an exam, if it is not a clearly mentioned, then you can follow either Gauss law or either Coulomb's law. Both the answer is, but it's clearly mentioned you to derive using the Gauss law, then you must have to follow this one. Yeah. So in this case, we have selected the same surface xy, which is located. We have selected one surface, have a area is A, and this surface located in an xy plane, have a surface charge density is rho s coulomb per meter square. So for this surface, the point at which we are selected the electric flux density, which is the perpendicular. You can see when you are going for the electric flux density using the Coulomb's law, we are also selected the point which is the perpendicular in nature with a surface. So in this case, we also considering the same thing. The point is perpendicular. So one is above and second is the below. But in this case, we don't know about the area. So that's why we have just mentioned this equation in terms of the integral of the d dot ds for the top surface and integral of the d dot ds for the bottom surface. In this case, no need to find out for the right side, left side, because this answer is always 0. We are interested only the flux density, which is the perpendicular point. It means the d is equal to dz. So this part is 0, and somehow we are integrate this equation for the top and bottom, and finally you are getting the d is equal to rho s upon 2 az. And if I put the d, which is in terms of the epsilon into E, then you can easily find out the answer of electric flux, then electric field intensity E. So this is the final answer of your E. Question 10, when the two vector is perpendicular, you should know it is always the cross product is 0, because whenever you are find out the cross product, they are not answer of this cross product, they are not located in a same plane, they are always in a perpendicular nature. So right answer is the dot product is 0. 11 question, a field has a 0 diversion and the curl, then the field says to the answer is the solenoidal as well as the rotational. So whenever you find out for the diversion of any vector field, and if you are getting the answer is 0, then it is always considered solenoidal. And if you are getting the curl del cross A, if A is the vector, you are getting the answer is 0, then it is considered rotational vector. Irrotational means you are getting some value of this particular curl, then it is considered irrotational. If you are getting the answer is 0, then it is considered as a rotational vector. I think in a question 212, I just forget, I just wait, just see what is this. Yeah, this one. The potential is given to you. V is equal to x square y minus phi z. In this case, you have to find out the electric field at some given point. So you should know the relation between the potential as well as the electric field. How we can find out? For that, we are assuming there is a one potential or there is a one charge which is located in a some uniform charge distribution. So whenever it means consider a free space. Whenever I want to move these particular charges, then you require some kind of an external force. External force in terms of the electromotive force, EMF. So when you are applying this force, this charge is moved its location from one to another one, and they are following one path. Okay, so location is now changed. So location it means it's the work done is there. But whenever if I applying the same force, then this charge will be moving in a different path with a similar location. And if I applying the same force, so in both the cases, the total work done is zero because the starting location as well as the ending location is zero. So based on this phenomena, we can find out the relation between the potential as well as the electric field. E is equal to minus del V. Gradient of the potential which is similar to the electric field intensity. I just repeat the word gradient of the potential. It's a similar to the electric field intensity. So equation is E is equal to minus del V. So you have to just find out the gradient of this particular equation in terms of the Cartesian coordinate system. And you have to put this value in this minus 4, 3 and 6. Yeah. So you can solve this answer. The last question is for the charge 1 Q1, the effect of the charge Q2 on the Q1 will be. So already you are knowing whenever there is a two different charges are located in a same medium, then both the charges are both the force according to the charge 1 and according to the charge 2 both are similar in terms of the magnitude but opposite in sign. So that's why the answer is F1 is equal to minus F2. So it's request to all the students you just verify the marks which may be getting from Microsoft form, and same marks you have to just verify. I already uploaded one image where there is a final marks is mentioned on your screen, so you just verify it. If there is some mismatch, you just tell me. Okay, and those ones have a less than the 12 marks. You have to write down this mid semester paper and you have to submit it within the 1 week. It's a compulsory. Those who have a less than the 12 marks, you have to submit this mid semester paper within the week. So is there any doubt for the mid semester exam or any topic or any solution related to this one? Any doubt?
No, sir.
Okay. If it is visible on your screen,
No, sir. Visible, sir.
so already we completed the chapter 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 for your GTU syllabus. Okay. From 1 to 5, there's only one topic is remaining. It's a retarded potential. This topic is remaining. So I think we discuss this topic after we finish this chapter 6, which is nothing but a transmission line. So up till now, whatever the topic we are discussing to electrostatic field, first we discuss about the vector calculus, where we are trying to find out the vector and scalar components, and based on this we are find out the four main parameter by just multiplication with your vector as well as the scalar components, del operator, diversion, gradient, as well as the curl. After that one, we are considering the Coulomb's law, and we are trying to find out the electric field intensity due to the different charge configuration, line, surface, and volume. Next, we discuss about the Gauss law, and using the Gauss law, we are trying to find out the Maxwell's first equation, and we are find out the divergence theorem. Same way, we can also find out the application of the Gauss law is nothing but how we can find out the electric field intensity using the Gauss law. After that one, we are moving towards the magnetostatic field. First two law we discuss about the Biot-Savart law, and second is nothing but a Ampere circuit law. And in both the cases, we are trying to find out the magnetic field intensity H for the line charge or current carrying conductor. After that one, we discuss about the Stokes theorem, and we modify this equation in terms of the vector magnetic potential, and we find out the Maxwell's fourth equation. And last we discuss about the Lorentz force equation, which is nothing but a combination of the electric field as well as the magnetic field, where you can write down the F is equal to QE plus QU cross B, where F QU cross B, it's a velocity of your magnetic field charge. So whatever the fourth equation we derived for the Maxwell, it's only the static field up to the chapter 2. After that one, we modify the Maxwell's equation in a time varying behavior. We modify this equation in a time varying behavior using the Faraday's law and using the displacement current. Okay. Displacement current is nothing but whenever you are taken the two different current. One is the convention current, second is the conduction current, and third is the displacement current. For the conduction current, you require the conductor for the moving the charge, but for the convention current, we don't require any kind of your conductor. It's nothing but a movement of the current. It's due to the concentration of the charges. And the last one is the displacement current. In displacement current, we have selected the two different point in a one conductor, where both the point have a different in terms of the charge distribution. So whenever you are reaching from this point to second point in this particular conductor, then you can find out the displacement current. So using this two current, displacement current and the Faraday's law, we modify the Maxwell's equation in terms of the time domain behavior, and we find out in terms of the point form as well as the differentiation form. Sorry, point form is by default differentiation, and you can put it in an integral form. In a chapter 4, you have electromagnetic wave. So whenever you are transmitting these waves in a different medium like a free space, dielectric, and the conductor, we find out the velocity of this electromagnetic wave is changed because of the epsilon as well as the mu properties. So we derive some of the equation in terms of the intrinsic impedance, the velocity of the wave for the different mediums. After that one, we are find out the Poynting vector, because when you are transmitting the any waves in terms of the electromagnetic wave, so the most important part we are dealing with the power. So power associated with electromagnetic wave, which is considered as a Poynting vector. And same way, we have find out the skin effect. Skin effect is nothing but a when you are transmitting the any wave in terms of the any conductor, but if I increase the frequency or if I decrease the frequency, it's also affect the signal strength as well as the polarization of the waves. So we discuss about the skin effect. In a chapter 5, we discuss about the uniform plane distribution or uniform plane wave for the any kind of your signal. So for that, we are assuming there is a two different media. One is dielectric, second is the conductor. And whenever the signal is moving from one to another one, we are represent this signals in terms of the mathematical equation like incident wave, reflected wave, and the transmitted wave. And according to this equation, we find out the three main parameter. One is the reflection coefficient, second is the transmission coefficient, and third is nothing but a standing wave. After that one we discuss about the polarization. So whenever you have a signal which is the parallel to your plane or the surface, then it's the parallel polarization, and similar for perpendicular, then it is perpendicular polarizations. So I think this is we discussed in a before the mid semester exam. Now there's only last chapter is remaining, which is nothing but a transmission line, because it takes more time. So in this particular chapter, what we are considering, we have a electromagnetic wave. We transmit this electromagnetic wave in terms of any different transmission line or any kind of your conductor, like a coaxial cable, twisted pair, simple single wire conductor, maybe a optical fiber. Then according to this particular transmission line, what is the potential and the current of this transmission line? So we discuss about this one, and according to this one we are also find out the reflection coefficient as well as the VSWR, and we also find out the another chart which is considered Smith chart for the measurement point of view. Why it is required? Because whenever I deal with some circuit which is connected with a transmitter side, which is connected with a antenna side. Suppose consider you have some transmitter and there's an antenna is there, and in between we are using some kind of a wire. So wire have some different material compared to the either transmission line or compared to the either antenna. So whenever there is a change in a material, definitely it will be signal strength is slightly degraded, because the impedance related to this particular material is different. Like a best example, you can consider resistors for the copper or maybe platinum or maybe aluminum or maybe a gold. So each and every case is the resistance is slightly different. So whenever there is a mismatch in terms of the impedance, your signals cannot be converted the 100%. So that's why we require some kind of a matching technique, which is nothing but a impedance matching technique. So this chart, which is very useful for the matching with any particular device, and this chart is considered Smith chart. So we discuss how we can find out the different parameter related to a Smith chart. And last one is the single line as well as the double stub line, where there is some circuit is given to you and someone is asking whenever I'm interested to find out the matching related to some components. Like matching is nothing but what you require some RLC components, resistor, inductor and capacitor, such a way that the impedance of the overall circuit will be matched with your either transmitter circuit or either antenna circuit or maybe antenna. Okay, because we cannot control the free space impedance, which is the 377 ohm, but somehow you can control the antenna impedance or somehow you can control the transmission impedance by adding some more circuit, which is called as a some kind of a impedance matching technique or impedance matching circuit. So for each and every transmitter or receiver you require some kind of a matching technique or the matching device for the impedance mismatch or impedance matching between the transmitter, antenna or maybe a free space. So this is all about this chapter 6. So I think from next lecture onwards, we discuss about what is the transmission line and what is the importance in terms of the voltage and current whenever you are transmitting some waves in a transmission lines. So taken the attendance. Okay, your lecture is now finished.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, sir. Sir, I want to know that my derivation is correct or wrong of the electric field intensity.
Yes.
Sir, I want to know that the derivation which I did in the mid-sem is right or wrong.
Your number is 19. Your name is?
Mohsin Ali Mohammed.
You just mail me. I'll be check and I'll be reply to you.
Okay, sir.
Okay, your name and your enrollment number.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.